So do you think reading comics can keep you smarter?
Yeah,
Some
definitely,
research says-
definitely. Comics. I read books now because of comics. I was a reluctant reader growing up. I didn't like reading. I went through, at any chance growing up, I wanted to get away.
A Kangaroo Fern production.
Welcome
to Guerrilla Podcast, Fresh Eyes,
the beat that makes you feel good.
a weekly podcast that features interviews with social change leaders or individuals that aims to bring audiences good stories to motivate their own social impact efforts. Now, here's your host.
That's
Humanista.
how I
This is
basically
Miko Santos from the Side Strip, and welcome
to
to
read
Guerrilla
better, and then
Podcast,
from there now I read
Fresh
a
Eyes. For this episode, we are discussing about superheroes and comics. Who is the oldest superhero? What is the most expensive comic book? I've been a fan of comic and cartoons since early years. So I used to watch when I was 7 years old. Used to watch the Japanese cartoons like the Voltus Fight, Daimos, Mazinger Z, and of course the Gundam Wing, one of my favorite one. And during the high school days, I love reading detective comics and the Batman Legend of the Dark Knight. So whoever era, it's 1990s, 80s, you know what I'm talking about. It's all about comics and what is the social impact of comics to our daily lives today. I'd say if you're watching some previous Spider-Man movies, with a great power comes with great responsibility. For today's episode, we're lucky enough. We have Dan McGuinness,
Yep.
who is the owner of
co-owner.
co-owner of Green Lights Comics,
Mm-hmm.
that is based in Adelaide, South Australia. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
How's your day today?
We had a busy day.
Busy
Day
day.
coming up to Christmas, man. There's lots of people want their comics.
By the way, who's your favorite superheroes?
My favorite superhero is a character called Invincible. He's from Image Comics, and he's created by what's his name? Robert Kirkman. He's the guy who created The Walking Dead and stuff like that. So I really, really, really love Invincible. That's my favorite character.
So, some people today, especially the millennial, which is 2000 up, who born,
Yep.
they don't know, because usually now it's all digital now. So what is comics?
Oh, comics aren't. I know, like the world is digital, but comics still are. Still, the majority of people who read comics do prefer to read them with in real life, if you will. There are a lot of people that do get like the apps and stuff like that, but we find a lot of people will come in if they read it on the app. They'll come in and then they'll buy the ones that they really like. And there are a lot of people I know that just don't like reading comics digitally. For some reason, comics just don't meld very well reading them digitally. I mean, there is all the stuff with the scanlations and stuff like that. But yeah, the majority of the people that we deal with, like they're brick and mortar comics.
So what do you think is the role of the comics right now in digital era?
I think the role of comics in digital era, at the moment, I think it's mostly like the big digital comics are stuff like manga and stuff like that. There is like comicologies, and all these like comic, apps and stuff. Marvel has an app, DC has an app and stuff like that. But I feel a lot of their stuff is released digitally. They do it a bit later than they bring it out on the books to give the books some time to come out. But at the moment, we don't get. Not many of my customers do quite a lot of comics digitally, kind of thing. But then you get the other side of it, you get stuff like webcomics. So webcomics are super popular, like stuff. And then eventually a webcomic, people will follow the artist, they'll follow the writer, and eventually they become so popular that they just get printed by one of the companies, usually Image or something like that. So if you've got that side of it, more the creator-owned up-and-coming stuff is usually digital, but the more traditional like superheroes and bigger companies are always just doing paper print.
So what do you think the future of comic stores like this?
Like this one?
On the era of digital. on social media as well?
I think there will always be comic stores, mainly because the publishers who create comics push them so hard, because that's where the majority of their sales come from, is through the sale of books. Even if it's books through, like Amazon and stuff like that, but it's still like people buying the book. So the future of comic shops, I think, will always be there because the publishers who make the comics really need the comic shops. So they support us a lot. And so I don't think we're going anywhere. The threat of everything going digital has been around for like, it's almost to the point where it peaked and now it's coming back down. So I think the comic shops are pretty safe. So the digital stuff has been like around for like 10 years now. So, and the comic shops are all still here. I mean, Adelaide's quite a small city and we've got like 3 comic shops here. So that's pretty good.
So do you think reading comics can keep you smarter?
Yeah, definitely. Comics, I read books now because of comics. I was a reluctant reader growing up. I didn't like reading. I went through, at any chance growing up, I wanted to get away from reading. I went through all of high school without reading any of the textbooks that we were supposed to read. Just skipped it all. And but then when I discovered comics and graphic novels and stuff like that, I started reading them because I didn't feel like reading. It wasn't as scary, it's a page of writing. There was still like images and stuff with it as well. And from there, that's how I basically learnt to read better. And then from there, now I read novels. Like there are lots and lots and lots of schools and libraries now that are using graphic novels for to get kids to read. We sell a massive amount of our sales are to libraries and schools who want to get basically they've just realised that reading is reading. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how you're reading. Those words in the speech bubbles are still proper grammar. They're still words and stuff like that. There's still narration boxes. You still have to use your imagination. It's just another way of telling a story.
So comics now from print to digital to movies right now. So why do you think the superheroes is more popular now? They converted to movies.
They've done a really so superhero films weren't that popular around about 15 years ago. They were always around, but they weren't that popular. Then Disney bought Marvel, and they created the Marvel Studios, and they decided that they were going to obviously they wanted to make really good films because that's what they do. And they did that by sticking really close to the original storylines and content that the original comics were about. Where other times, there'd been all superhero movies like a Superman movie or a Spider-Man thing, but they would just change it and do whatever, or executives would come in and change a lot of stuff. Where Disney gave the writers and the directors a lot of freedom, I think, with their writing, but then they also wanted to keep it quite close to the original.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to know more, check out kangaroofern.com.